I found a camera in the basement of the house I just bought. While cleaning out my newly purchased rental property and getting it ready for some new tenants, I found a camera in the basement. The equipment appeared relatively new and pretty high-end, and after I recharged the camera, I discovered that the SD card was full. I scrubbed through the videos and was shocked that the latest recording, which goes for over 15 hours, has the outside of my new property as its thumbnail. When I bought the property, I was told there may be a few fanatics popping by, but I didn't think any would enter the premises, let alone get into the basement. For my own safety, I will watch the video attaching the transcription of the footage below. Hopefully, they don't come back to look for the equipment while I'm still cleaning. Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. As you all know, I am Alec, said a teenage blonde-haired boy. And I'm Astrid, added a short-haired blonde girl who entered the frame. And this is Phantom Facers, they whimsically said in unison to the camera. It's night and the pair of apparent ghost hunters are superfluously equipped with cheap tactical equipment, utility belts, flashlights, head torches, walkie-talkies, a hunting knife along with some other gizmos. As Alec delivered exposition down the lens of the camera he held, Astrid utilized bolt cutters to open a passage through the property's barbed wire fence. Okay guys, so Astrid and I are literally outside the Sergstrom slaughterhouse right now. This pre-war residence was originally built and owned by Philip Sergstrom and his wife Eva, back in 1902. There are plenty of conflicting theories on the internet about what actually went down to the Sergstrom family, but all that is concrete is that one night in 1914, the whole family died. After that, there have been countless stories of ghost sightings and disappearances in and around the house. The most recent of which, a high school student called Taylor Mazie, who entered the Sergstrom slaughterhouse on a dare and was never seen again. Alec's delivery was oozing with charisma to a non-existent audience. All done, Astrid announced, turning to the camera and giving a thumbs up. After she placed the tool back in her duffel bag, they awkwardly crawled through the hole in the chain-link fence, right next to a no trespassing sign. On the other side of the property line, they readjusted themselves before addressing the audience once more. Guys, we have just stepped foot onto the Sergstrom property and I am so excited and a bit nervous for what we may encounter. How are you feeling, Astrid? Do you sense anything? I definitely can feel something in the air. There is a certain acidity to the spirits here. Wow! That sounds like we are at the right place then, Alec proclaimed, turning the camera around to show off the house's exterior. The red paint had evaporated from the wood slates, and besides an awning at its entrance, nothing projected off of the tall walls of the house. Shaped like a brick with a roof, the house stood in the middle of substantial acreage. Many fences secluded the house from the nearest road, but this did not to deter its fanatics. There should be a loose slat around the back. Can you turn on your torch so we can better lighting for the next shot? Alec asked. Sure, Astrid's demeanor changed from the sparkling one she used earlier. As they circled the house, through the nightmarishly long grass, Alec panned the camera across the many boarded-up windows. The house had lived through a time where, for some ridiculous reason, there was a tax for the amount on the windows of a house. So one of the many owners of the property opted to fill in the majority of the house's windows. Alec, this place looks pretty secure. Are you sure there is a way to get inside? Astrid asked while leading the way forward. I am certain that we will find a way inside. Hold on, I think I see our way in, he replied while zooming in on a slight opening in one of the downstairs windows. Astrid dropped the duffel bag and shone her torch into it. While pointing the camera to the ground at nothing, I could hear Alec rummaging around in the bag. After a moment, he displayed a newly bought hammer in front of the camera. He then shakily palmed the camera off to Astrid before he tore open the window with the claw of the hammer. Should I be recording this? Probably not. We can always cut it later. Like when you forget your lines. Shut up. I am glad that I watched this video. After finishing this transcription, I will surely have enough evidence, that being of their social media account name and the video footage of a crime being committed. Alec laughed and returned the hammer to the bag after the opening in the window was sufficiently large. He then addressed the audience. Perfect. We have just found our entrance to the Sergstrom slaughterhouse, guys. Look at this. As you know, the last person to come through here was never heard from again. Well, I will see you on the other side, Astrid, he said before pulling himself through the window. Out of the darkness, he said, pass the bag first. Oh, yeah, she said, tilting the camera back down at nothing. The footage of the two breaking into the property is obscured and muffled. I imagine they will be editing this part out. After the footage clears up, it appears as if they had entered through the kitchen window and now were setting up the next scene. Alec was back behind the camera and was directing Astrid. So the Oma story and then psychic moment? Yeah, and try to make it believable this time. Astrid nodded and cleared her throat before talking again. So, guys, we are currently in the kitchen of the Sergstrom slaughterhouse. It has been rumored that, in this very place, Eva Sergstrom fed her family their last supper. A special recipe of beef stew with the added ingredient. Poison. Wait, Alec, do you feel that? No, Astrid. What is it? There is a strong presence in this room. Quickly, check for electrical interference. Alec pointed the camera at his other hand, where a homemade electronic gadget was flashing. Whoa! He exclaimed. What is it, Alec? I am getting some serious readings on the EMF. There's unquestionably some supernatural activity going on in this house, he proclaimed as he panned the camera around the kitchen. The pair followed the beeping device out of the brassy kitchen into the barren living room. The house has an indescribable lifelessness, like nobody had ever called it home. There are no paintings or any signs that there ever were paintings on the wall. There are no ornaments or knickknacks anywhere, and there is a rudimentary amount of furniture around. I was told by the real estate agent that the previous owners took the majority of their belongings with them. How do you feel, Astrid? Are there any spiritual forces in this room? I feel itchy. This place is probably crawling bugs. Hey, stay in character, he said, flashing his torch directly in her eyes. Padaglet. She cursed. They walked a couple more steps before Astrid dramatically stopped and looked up to the ceiling. Did you hear that? She asked the camera. Yes, it was a wail of sorts, right? Possibly a death echo. It came from upstairs. Let us go and investigate. While advancing up the stairs to the bedrooms, Astrid walked backwards with one hand on the stairs, surprisingly not dusty railing. I need to describe to you guys the smell of this house. It is unlike any of our previous locations. Normally these old haunts smell of mothballs and aged rat droppings, but this place is totally different. This house is potent with the smell of life, like the spirits which inhabit this place are bringing it back. Alec panned the camera across the yellow wallpaper. The house is unusually clean and cobweb-free for a property that has been vacant for such a long time. The wallpaper does not sag, nor has its color faded. An electronic whirl emitted from Alec's tactical vest. My EVP spirit box is spiking. We are getting closer now, Alec announced. As they opened the master bedroom door, both of the electronic devices rang out at maximum volume. I am switching to infrared mode. Astrid, what can you see? The dark video flickered from the image of the unlit bedroom to a blue-purple thermal image of the quaint interior room. From the hallway, Alec zoomed into the bedroom and scanned its contents for something. There is a presence with us. I can sense that it is in this room. I think it may be a malevolent one. Yes, I can see it now. It is the ghost of Philip Sergstrom, said Astrid. I am picking up some hot readings over near the bed. Is that where Philip is? Should we start communing with the spirit? The color of the video's image did not change from the cold blue it displayed earlier. I think the pair were planning on adding some sort of post-production effect over the footage to solidify their inaccurate statements. Well, from the research we have gathered, I am certain now that the presence in the room is none other than the killer of the Sergstrom family, Philip Sergstrom, husband of Eva and grandfather of Tim and Sue Sergstrom. The story goes that after the untimely death of Tim and Sue's parents, the children were sent to live in this very house with Philip and Ava. Maybe out of demonic possession, or maybe he went insane. On one unsuspecting morning, whilst he was shaving, Philip snapped, and with his cutthroat razor, he massacred his wife and grandchildren before ending his own life in this very room. "Why did you do it, Philip?" Alec bluntly asked the empty room. From within her satchel, Astrid produced an almost invisible thread of black string. She then tied it to the bedroom's doorknob and walked behind Alec, out of the camera's view. "Ready?" "Yep." The thin string went taut as Astrid yanked the bedroom's door shut. They both then gave stagey reactions to the event before bolting back down the stairs. In the living room, they recapped the events to the audience. "Wow, oh my god, guys. That was so intense," panted Alec. "I think he wants us to leave." "I am certain," Astrid said as Alec switched off the camera's infrared light and relaxed his hands. "Great work, and nice improvisation with the cutthroat razor bit," Alec said. "Thanks, Breer. Where shall we film the ending scene?" "Back upstairs or—" They turned to the short, innocent-looking door under the stairs. "The basement," they said in uncanny unison. Alec led the way this time, and Astrid followed behind, providing inadequate light. The stairs were solid, yet chalky granules of dust crunched under their heels. With each step, they furthered themselves from the 18th century architecture of the building above and into the decrepit 15th century basement below. The ambience licks of the moon's lights did not dare touch the basement. I never really took notice of it before, but there is a quite stark difference in architectural styles. I'm guessing that the house must have been renovated over the years, Philip's being the most recent restoration. After they set foot on the dirt ground, Alec and Astrid surveyed the potently musky cellar. Religious iconography, empty candles, and an unsettling amount of small bones occupied the high-ceilinged basement. There aren't any storage boxes or extra furniture in the basement, just piles of unorganized articles. "We have hit the jackpot. Go and stand over by the crosses," Alec ordered. Astrid walked over to the far wall of the basement, next to an assortment of occult paraphernalia as Alec framed the scene. "I have just finished tidying all that up. Guys, we are back, and you won't believe what we have found in the bowels of the Sergstrom slaughterhouse," she said with expressive hands. Alec moved the camera from her onto the items scattered in their vicinity. It appears that the Sergstrom family may have been a part of a religious cult of some sort. There have been a few theories suggesting that, but until today, there has been no evidence to support the theories. We have found some witchy black candles, upside-down crosses, and satanic symbols, along with... The camera began to shake and Astrid stopped talking. Light debris fell from the ceiling as the pair quickly hauled themselves under the stairs. Neither of them spoke during the tremor. After the footage stabilized again, it looked as if the house was unaffected. "I wasn't told this place was an earthquake hotspot. I hope that it doesn't deter any potential renters." "Alec, I do not feel comfortable being here anymore. Can we?" "Astrid, look." He interrupted. He panned the camera over to a section of the rear wall, next to the crosses. Before Astrid had a chance to protest, Alec made his way to the wall, through the still settling soot. A section of the brick wall fractured during the tremor, creating a hole to a place that was too dark to see. Most of the basement footage was hard to decipher, due to the lack of light, but I thought I could see strange serrations around the edges of the fissure. I just went and had another look at the basement, but could not find any fissures in the place shown. I am being serious, Alec. Can we please stop? We have enough footage. Can we go? Her quiet voice uttered as it drifted further away from the camera. Alec surveyed the fissure, its savage, almost rectangular fracturing and ambitious depths. It didn't appear to produce any rubble on either side of it. Alec. Astrid. We have been doing this fucking show for how many fucking months and never gotten more than 100 fucking views. This, Astrid, this is what will get us a sponsorship. So for once, can you stop whining like a dog? Or do you want to go back home, to them? I am trying to get us out, for good. Fuck. He didn't turn the camera back to her, it just stayed pointed into the hole, focusing and unfocusing. Even though the tremor had passed, dust and inorganic crumbs continued to trickle down from the fisher's maw. Since Astrid was a bit away from the camera, it was hard to make out, but I thought I could hear some muffled sobs in the background. Alec returned to the role of camera operator, recording B-roll of the basement. He found a string of wooden effigies to show the camera, along with a large pile of old clothes. The pile looked as if it had melted into one gloopy mass. After Astrid finished sobbing, she rejoined Alec at the fissure. He took a step away from it and positioned her in the fissure in frame. Astrid tried to fix her face, to make it seem like she hadn't just cried. She closed her face, and after a shuddered inhale and exhale, she was ready to present. OMG guys, you have to check this out. You are not going to believe what just happened. She enlarged her puffy red eyes and signaled the audience closer. As Alec and I were investing the basement of the Sergstrom slaughterhouse, a freaky earthquake struck. We're okay of course, but look what opened up, like a caricature of a TV show host, she directed the audience. Whoa, what is it, Astrid? Alec urged her to continue. It could be anything, Alec, we do not know. It could be the secret back room where the Sergstrom family performed occult rituals, or even Philip Sergstrom's torture chamber, where he played with his kidnapped victims. We do not know, but we will get to the bottom of this together. So keep watching to find out, and if you haven't already, react to this video and share it. The strain in her eyes was palpable. Good. Now go in, Alec's voice resumed its controlling tone. Astrid didn't fight him. She wiped her eyes and raised her torch before entering the fissure. She quickly disappeared into the darkness, after which Alec approached the opening and heard a gagging sound from within. What? His voice held little genuine concern. Nothing, it just smells of hot death in here, she sneered. As Alec stepped into the fissure, the vague space on the other side was revealed. The walls were raw, they were muddy red and looked as if they had been manually excavated. It was a narrow alcove that teetered out quickly, but it was long enough for the pair to both stand inside. It is different in here. It is hotter, right? He asked. It is weird, right, Astrid? He asked again, this time pointing the camera towards her. Astrid was standing at the deepest point of the chamber, dead still. She pointed her torch down into a circular hole in the floor. The space was silent, besides a few abnormal cycles of wind. Alec turned the camera around to himself and began talking to it with his back to the fissure. Wow guys, check this out. We have just entered the fissure and found a secret room. This is literally insane. This place looks like it has been mined by hand. Maybe it is a secret bunker, mined by Philip Sergstrom himself, hidden behind the brick walls of the basement for decades until that earthquake revealed it. What is more, Astrid has discovered another hole. I wonder where this will lead us, he finished and flipped the camera back to Astrid as she swiftly slid into the hole. Hey! He shouted as he shuffled over to the hole. As he peered the camera into the hole in the floor, I could only just make out Astrid. After a moment, he ungraciously followed her into the vertically descending tunnel. The undiscerning pair climbed down the ribbed hole. It was so easy enough to navigate, Alec was still able to operate the camera while he descended. Do you smell that, Astrid? I think I can smell vinegar. Maybe the ghosts are cooking some poached eggs down there. He sounded like he genuinely was trying to make her laugh. The cylindrical tunnel's walls appeared slippery, like they were coated in something. Condensation began to form on the lens of the camera, making the footage blurrier. A noise, like a large gust, distorted the video's audio as Alec gripped tight to the side of the tunnel. Then, a cascading thud beat down from the top of the hole, making its way to Alec. It looked like the walls were compressing him. It was then that he either lost his grip or was pushed down by the tunnel's ribbed walls. He screamed as he perilously fell. He gave up on his camera duties and used all of his limbs to claw at the walls for a footing. His momentum suddenly stopped as the camera, pointing downwards, gently swayed back and forth. "Ari, Ari!" Alec cried. Below Alec, Astrid sunk into a gurgle ooze. She thrashed and flailed but failed to scream. Alec looked as if he was dangling above a bubbling cavern. Alec switched his hands over, using the one with the camera attached to hold his weight above the caustic pit. With his other hand, he retrieved the knife from his utility belt and plunged it into the side of the cavern. Perhaps this was an attempt to escape, or perhaps a frail attempt at revenge. A deep croak belted from below the acidic cavern before the boiling lake below began to rapidly rise. As Alec struggled to ascend back up the tunnel, Astrid vanished into the amber liquid below. All of a sudden, a liquid blast erupted from the cavern, swallowing Alec and the camera, and after what sounded like a torrent of water belted him. The liquid on the camera subsequently evaporated, as a static like his sounded. Alec was on his stomach, back outside the fissure. The camera had slid in front of him a couple of inches, and his hand reached out to the audience as he suffered. His skin, flesh, and hair dematerialized from his body. His hand rapidly disintegrated from a mottled mess to a loose and white as behind him, the roof and floor of the fissure slowly closed until it was flush again with the brick wall. Over the next few hours, until the camera presumably ran out of battery, Alec slowly dissipated until there was no organic matter left, just melted cloth. I walked with the dead men in the desert. It started as a weekend trip to Las Vegas. A 3-day weekend was coming up. Some friends wanted to add spice to their lives, and Vegas was on the bucket list. Not mine, theirs. I wanted to stay home and watch old cartoons I bought from a video store, maybe just sleep in that Friday. Maybe I didn't make it clear to them, or maybe they just ignored me, but they had already bought me a plane ticket and booked a hotel room. With it being too late to refund everything, so out of financial obligation, I couldn't let that money go to waste and be a bad, boring friend. We landed and reached the hotel before noon. I had 5 friends with me, and everyone was feeling the excitement, especially one, Sadie. Sadie was the group extrovert, the leader. She didn't suggest Vegas, but she sure as hell put herself in charge the moment the others considered the trip. Standing in front of us in the hotel lobby, she held a list of places for us to check out. I stood by and let her list them off, everyone casting votes on which places to skip, which places to start with, and which ones to save for last. What we ended up with was a schedule starting with the most fun and physically demanding stuff, gradually leading towards the more exciting, unsavory stuff. I had already mentally decided to call it when evening rolled around to avoid the clubs. I guess I am a boring friend. I will say this about Vegas, a lot of places are surprisingly clean. Don't get me wrong, we saw plenty of streets that looked like the physical manifestation of a painful hangover, but many were straight out of Hollywood. It's colorful, it's loud, it's a theme park that people live in. It was almost surreal when we ended up on streets that looked plain and ordinary. Men in suits, kids leaving school, that kind of thing. I guess I knew very little about Las Vegas. Of course, a lot of it is normal, but still, I found it interesting. When we turned down onto a street where the buildings looked like modern art, I knew I would be in for a hell of a time. Day drinking, slot machines, live shows, you name it. I can admire the work and effort they put into all of it, but it just wasn't for me. When we had dinner at what I thought was a nice casino restaurant, until I saw the male servers were in very tight, revealing outfits, I had just about mentally checked out. "Hey, I think I'm done," I said, before the chorus of ayahs could get any louder. "I'm tired. The flight gave me a headache and everything." "I have a pill for that in my purse," one said. I think rest is better right now. You guys have fun though, try not to stay out too late." I felt older with every word and excuse. I'm 28 and I was talking like I was 48. That being said, the amount of free relief I felt walking into that empty hotel room was criminal. I must have felt tired to some degree because the bed I fell onto had my eyes drooping. It was the cool, soft, Egyptian cotton sheets that had me feeling that sleep was the finest pleasure on earth. I know that says a lot about me, but still, it was pretty good. I turned the TV on and flicked through channels, finally ending up on a new episode of How It's Made. Well, maybe it was an old episode, I don't know. What I can say for sure is that my brain was locked in, and as the sun fell beyond the horizon, I was gone. Asterisk. I woke up to a call. My phone was buzzing beside my head, the vibrations doing more to wake me up than the light-hearted jingle I have for a ringtone. I said the name Sadie. Yeah? I groaned. What's up? It's 5 in the morning. Where are you guys? Hey, you're really missing out here. Sadie's voice was garbled by music. We're up the road, towards the red place. We're in the club with the big green monster truck out front. You can't miss it. Come on. She hung up before I could say anything. You underestimate me, I muttered. I turned over in bed and looked out the window. The city was alive, even after a full night. Lights and sounds, the distant thumps of music. There had to be some stellar muting in the walls because I could see that the party was not far away. I thought about going. It was the idea of missing out that bothered me a little because I didn't think I was missing out. Yet, when so many people you call friends say that you start to wonder if you really know how to live. Maybe the happiness you feel from simple things isn't as potent as the happiness you get while being drunk in a club with your friends. Screw that, I said. I knew that was a dumb way of thinking, but I also didn't feel that tired anymore. The least I could do was enjoy the trip my own way, and at that moment, I just wanted to go for a walk. Not in the streets, of course, but I did remember Sadie mentioning on her list of activities a walk thing just outside the city. I was the only one who was interested, and she didn't seem too enthusiastic when she told us about it either. I got out of bed and texted her, asking for the address, to which she sent me the Google Business thing. No official page or anything, just a bare-bones minimum. It lacked the Vegas flair everything had, and for me, that was a plus. Just after midday, I arrived at the place. I paid the taxi guy and jumped out into the heat. I always had decent clothing for the outdoors with me. It was like my entire wardrobe. Yet, the heat was still a surprise. I guess being in a cool car for half an hour would make it feel like stepping into an oven. The trail started a small collection of shacks, with one larger building that looked like it was in good condition. It was painted an ugly yellow, with small cartoonish paints all around it, like a cactus character, a tumbleweed, with some classics like the Roadrunner and Wall E. Coyote thrown in for good measure. I don't think they were going for a cowboy theme, but that's what I felt when I saw the owner, a tall woman, wearing chaps, a 10-gallon hat, and a checkered shirt. She looked like she had seen some things, just shocking the way the skin beneath her eyes seemed to bubble. Yet, when she saw me, she gave me the warmest smile. You must be Cassandra, right? She greeted, marching over with her hand outstretched. Yes, that's me, I said, holding mine out. She took and shook my arm like a wet noodle. I'm not too late? Not at all, she said. Some eccentric fellas are already set up for the first group today. There's still time to join them before they go. Group? Yes, I find it's better to send people in groups. Less chance of people getting lost or bunching up on the trail. Better for pictures, you see? Right. We also have a route for horses if you're interested in dash. No horses, scare the SHA, they scare me. I will stick with the walking group. Fair enough, I won't press you. I always hated it when people said that. Nothing made me feel more pressed. Still, she was the sweetest lady, sweeter than honey in iced tea. I didn't say anything more and followed her to the start of the trail. There was clear signage with numbers near the fences and gates indicating the different trails. The trail she pointed me to didn't have a sign or number. The first group should be waiting there. She pointed down the trail toward a large rock. They are set to leave in 5 minutes. Do you have everything you need? Water, hat, and sunscreen, I said. Good, it's hot now, but it will get cool later. A little known fact about the desert, Dorothy said, painting up a finger as if she expected me to take note. Of course, I knew that already. I nodded and started walking up the trail toward the rock. She already started her march back to the main building. I was feeling pretty good, even excited. I love the openness of the desert, and I was hoping that being 20 minutes out of Vegas, I would get to enjoy the natural beauty of it all. There was a group of people waiting by the rock, but looking at them was a little weird. I mean, I don't want to show my ignorance, but I think they were religious or just had some kind of cultural thing going on. Maybe I was about to walk with some foreigners from overseas, or it was some kind of LARPing group. I don't know. There were at least 20 people there, and it was hard to tell if they were all men or not because they were dressed in robes from head to toe. Not flowing robes either, but a lot more neat and constricted. My first real thought wasn't, what the hell are they wearing, but how the hell haven't they melted? All but one of their robes were red, but the last one was black. He stood tall and straight, the first one to turn in my direction. Upon seeing them, I was already psyching myself up to say something. Approaching a group of people alone was terrifying. As you can guess, Sadie and her group were the ones who adopted me at work. I was just happy they did because I would have never gone up to them. Room for one more? I said with a forced smile. I was a little quiet at first, but better a little too quiet than a little too loud. The ones in the red robes turned from me and looked at the one in black. Please do, the man said. Have you been on this trail before? No, first time, I answered. Be sure to stick close and conserve your energy. It is to be a long walk. The man in the black robes pointed towards the desert, the distant rocks, and the sparse foliage. It felt so surreal, but right. Like I had stepped into the adventure I wanted. Only, something kept throwing me off. It was the silence from such a large group. When we started on the path, I didn't hear anything from the people in the red robes. The only one I had heard speak up until that moment was the one in the black robes. He would speak to me every few minutes, usually to point something out, but the gaps between those moments were growing larger. Initially, I thought he was a guide, but it became clear as he drifted into the others that he was just familiar with the trail. I was too shy to keep the conversation going, finding myself just enjoying the sights. The range of colors was just incredible. So many people think the desert is just muted, dry colors, but there are just so many shades of light and dark. The vibrant oranges when we found ourselves in a ravine were stunning. We followed a stream in that shallow ravine until the trail opened into the desert again. It was just in time to see the sun settle beyond the horizon. The sky becomes like blood, the man in the black robes said behind me. I jumped, not at his voice, but because I thought I was at the back of the pack. I wanted to keep everyone in view. A beautiful red, yes? I turned to look at him. He was looking at me. I could see his eyes, his pale skin, through the slit in the robes. It was odd to look at because his hands were dark. Another cultural thing, maybe? When I had finally registered his words as a question, I stuttered in response. Yeah, I said, feeling a chill run down my spine. I took the hoodie out of my backpack and pulled it on. Amazing how fast the cold comes in too, huh? Yes, do you think you can make the walk back? He asked. We should almost be there, so. No, we are quite far now, he corrected. By night, the journey back should be quicker, 5 hours seems about right. My heart sank. I thought we had taken some turns and were just about to see the start of the trail again over the hill. Yet, looking around, I should have been able to see that distant glow of Vegas. Instead, all I saw were dark, robed figures, shambling ever onward into the desert. My water had run out, my phone had long since died, and I was hungry. My panic was stiff at first, but I began to hear it in my voice. Then let's turn back, I said. You can go back, we are heading somewhere else, the man in black said. Is it close? Very, but you won't be able to join us, not as you are. He looked me up and down. I wondered if he was referring to my clothes and how I stood out amongst them, but something in those eyes showed a different kind of disgust. It was like my entire existence didn't fit in, not just my clothes. His tone was growing more serious and less friendly as well. He was losing patience. At that moment, I noticed a building noise. A rumbling, which I mistook for chatter amongst the men and women in red robes, but as it grew louder, it sounded more like an uncoordinated hum. Like they were all humming a song none of them knew the lyrics to. Again, too late, he murmured. As it should be, so it is. Too late? I repeated. Mind where you step, he told me. Once your weight is on your foot, your choice is made. The humming had reached a breaking point in the tone. The night sky became a lot darker, and the stars and moon vanished. The midnight blue became pitch black, a surreal void. It felt like something was blocking it out of sight because that same darkness seemed to move wherever I looked. Yet, the desert remained illuminated by some strange source of light. I could see the red robes against the pitch black and watch as they marched across the sands. I was overwhelmed by a sense of dread, a feeling of weakness. My whole body began to ache and every effort seemed to strain my muscles and even my bones. I knew this feeling. The one bubbling inside of me. It was many years ago when I was a child. I was coughing in bed, constantly, day after day. That weakness kept me wondering how hollow I could get. I felt as weak and flimsy as a thin plastic bag. My heart, I could feel its every beat, as if all my insides were numb and only it soldiered on. I was waiting for it to give out. The people in the red robes began to shed their blood-red fabric. Naked forms that began to age and decay before my eyes. A space in the inky void ahead of them opened up, a shining white door, tall and thin. The way was clear and I didn't have it in me to walk on. I was terrified. Why are you scared? The man in the black robes asked. What awaits you is an end to the pain. Keep walking strong. He placed his hand on my shoulder and guided me. The people ahead of me were growing more grotesque by the second. I had no idea what made our bodies, so I was made to watch them unmake themselves. The skin, the fat, the pus, the blood. The shades of red began to turn blue and green. My head was burning inside. I felt dehydrated. While my body was in a state of shock and fear, my mind was trying its best to grip reality, to steer me away. The man in the black robes seemed to sense it because he stopped walking and looked at me. With all my energy, I looked at him. You cannot go back now, he told me. Your life is with them, it is only natural to pass over to the next plane. I felt the heat of tears. It was just like those nights years ago. The very real fear of death. I am ashamed of it now, but I was not thinking of my loved ones, not even my family. I didn't think of all the wrong I did, the regrets I had. When I looked into that man's eyes, all I thought was, why now? The man seemed to sigh, but I didn't hear the exhale. His shoulders slumped and the humming faded completely. The shambling corpses turned around to look back at me with their empty sockets. The dead must be laid to rest, he said. It is only natural. The earth will bind the body and free the spirit. The man in black grabbed both my shoulders, twisted me around, and began to lay me on the ground as if I weighed nothing. I couldn't move. I could only watch as he began to scoop the sand with his hands over me. I heard the rumbling again, but it sounded angry. I looked up, as far as I could with my neck arched. I could see the world upside down, the white arch, and the silhouettes of the dead against that divine light. The corpses were moving closer and they radiated malice. More tears and even a pathetic whimper. Hush, the man in the black robe said. They are not upon you yet. He was working fast, and only a few seconds later I could feel sand over every inch of my body. He finished by pouring the sand over my face, covering me completely. I heard the dead close in. I heard a muttering of words, then I heard his screams. I try not to imagine the pain one must feel to make those sounds. He was still alive, but his cries grew further away as they carried him towards the white arch. I could gather this much from what I heard. As his voice faded, the rumbling ceased and strength returned to my body. I could breathe, and I was breathing in sand. With a choking gasp, I sat up, coughing and spluttering. I noticed immediately the pink and purple hue of the sky. On my back, I felt the warmth of the morning sun. Looking all around, I saw nothing. No dead people, no man in black, no inky sky and white arch. All the evidence I had was the blood on the sand and it trailing off before stopping completely. Asterisk. I found a road and somebody to point me in the direction of Vegas, but they weren't willing to give me a lift back. Luckily, after an hour or two of walking, someone else. I watched as we drove past the road leading to the yellow building where the trail began. I think I even saw Dorothy talking to a group of tourists. When I arrived at the hotel, I dug my room key out of a sandy backpack and held it in front of the machine. It still worked, and a few seconds later, I was taking a shower, trying to let the hot water bring a little more warmth to my body. All the while, I thought about that man in the black robes. He wasn't a dead man, not like the others. He didn't seem evil, but he didn't seem sane either. No matter what conclusions I made about him, I realized that he saved my life and paid a price for it. A thought that snapped everything into place, and I cried in that shower as all the feelings rushed at me at once. I spoke about this experience with only one person, a priest. I don't think he believed a word I said, not truly. I think he thought I was talking about a dream, or more accurately, a nightmare. Yet, he showed enough concern to say something wise and biblical about sacrifice. It wasn't his words that convinced me to refine my faith. It was the thought of believing in nothing when something like that happened to me. It didn't sit right. That's what I gained for the price that someone else paid. I pray that it is enough.